Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Talk Soccer to Me, a weekly soccer news show of sorts. This is episode 25, but bigger than that, this is the first episode into the world of YouTube, my attempt on making a video. So this is going to be terrible. This is going to be really bad, but we got a lot to talk about this week. I'm really excited. We're trying to hit this with the news show format. We've got Champions League. There was one Premier League game this week, had a crazy ending. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Then we're going to hit on some Europa League, Conference League, even touch into some North American Champions Cup, and that's the North American Champions League, if you're unaware. And then rolling into the weekends, it was a pretty standard weekend. You've got, your 10 Premier League games. We'll talk a little Spain, Italy, France, Germany, hit on all of that. Again, first time watching, this was typically a podcast. We're switching over into the world of YouTube. I think I'll still try to release it like typical as a podcast, like have a Spotify of just the audio of what's being recorded right now. But this is the first YouTube episode, so this might suck. And if you listen to it and you think it sucks, I don't blame you. But if you're looking for a soccer news show, week in, week out, with no bias, because bias is my biggest issue. Bias is what makes me want to make videos like this, where it feels as though you can't get weekly news about the world of soccer, and primarily European. Like, let's be real here. I mean, I like the MLS. I'm an MLS guy. I'm an American sports guy through and through, but the best soccer is in Europe, and that's the soccer that I want to talk about. It's soccer I want to listen to, watch, all the good stuff. That's all the media I want to consume. And I feel like the media is lacking. So this is like my plea to you. This is the argument that I'm going to make is this is a show where I want to remove the bias. There's just so much rampant bias in European soccer media. It's crazy. And I can't blame some of these guys. I mean, you get a guy who came up through an academy. He lives and breathes a club, It's different over there. But I do think that difference seeps into their journalism, and it's kind of resulted in a lot of unfavorable media. And for me, I want something week in, week out, where I can just hear about what happened. I don't need a Premier League best 11 for the 14th millionth time and watch a bunch of assholes debate, Scholes versus Gerrard versus Lampard. What happened in Italy this week? What happens in the Premier League this week? Is there even something groundbreaking, like was there a big derby in Scotland or Portugal, the Netherlands? And that's what I'm trying to give you. That's the MO of this show. That's what we're trying to deliver today. And yeah, I'm really excited. There was a lot of good stuff this week. Champions League playoff round. Some upsets, high scoring, and unfortunately controversy that we'll get into later. And yeah, the one Premier League game. And so yeah, the typical format, the way this will run is I don't have the capacity right now to do 2 episodes in the span of a week. So typically looking for this to come out on Tuesday nights, and it'll be the week before and the weekend before. So yeah, by the time you may listen to this, the results of the Champions League first playoff round may be null and void. It may not matter. The team that won the first leg could have completely lost. But, I mean, that's still what happened in the world of European soccer, so we're going to talk about it regardless. So, yeah, now I think it's time to jump into these Champions League fixtures. So, yeah, also just another heads up. If you think this is a show with good editing or highlights or anything, no, this is some idiot rambling in his bleak, white-walled bedroom. Maybe one day in the future. Maybe this is better equipped for some streaming service where I can just ramble on and on and on, because I will be doing a lot of rambling. Yes. But, yeah, no, if you're looking for some high production, high quality show, we ain't there yet. Maybe if you keep watching, like, comment, subscribe, whatever. Galatasaray versus Juventus was the first Champions League match. That was the early on the broadcast. There were 4 on Tuesday. It was a rainy night in Istanbul. For all my Americans, our guy Weston McKennie was starting for Juventus. I know it's kind of been like a mixed tenure for him there. I think he's doing well. I think the performances he's put in for Juventus is exactly what I want for someone on the United States men's national team. But it's been Juventus, and tonight was one of those Juventus's nights. We'll get it started with the goals. 15th minute for Galatasaray, Gabriel Sara. Juventus make a mess out of it, trying to play out of the back. Galatasaray pounce. Wouldn't be the first time that happens tonight. And there was a fine first-time finish. Got it done. Just like that, Galatasaray were up 1-0. But then, within a minute, Juventus, fought back. They hit the ball down the field. They sent the header in. It was Kalulu, the right back for Juventus. His header was decent. It was saved by the Galatasaray keeper, but it landed right at the feet of Toon Koopmeiners. And, I mean, you really aren't going to score an easier goal 1-1. Kind of shocking for Galatasaray to have that lead and give up a goal immediately. 31st minute, Koopmeiners actually got a double for Juventus on the night. Juve played it right through the middle pretty easily after your Galatasaray turnover. It was a 1-2 between Koopmeiners and McKinney. And yeah, just like that, the visitors were up 2-1. That was the score that went into halftime. But spoiler alert, that was not the score by the end of the game. 49th minute, Noah Lang got his first ever goal for Galatasaray. It was really kind of similar to the not the first goal, but the second goal that Koopmeiners scored. It was a shot that was sent in, it wasn't saved well, and it landed at the feet of someone to easily put it in, and that's what happened for Noah Lang. 60th minute, Gabriel Sara sends in a quick free kick, one deflection, takes it past Di Gregorio, the Juventus goalkeeper. At the time of watching, we weren't really sure who the goal scorer was. Davison Sanchez celebrated like it was his goal, and that actually ended up being true. And yeah, 3-2 Galatasaray. They came back from being down 2-1 at halftime. 67th minute, Juan Cabal, the substitute for Juventus, comes on in the game and manages to get himself 2 yellow cards. So now Juventus were down a man. 7 minutes later, just disaster from the back. Juventus, again, trying to play it out. Don't really know. Like, they didn't look like they knew what they were doing. And Victor Osimhen, the 100 million pound man, bounced right on it. Just, again, dumb decisions from Juventus, and it was 4-2 Galatasaray's favor. 86th minute, a fine strike from Sasha Bowie makes it 5-2 Galatasaray over Juventus, if you can believe that. I don't know what happened to Juventus. I mean, you look at Juventus 10 years ago, 2016. That team, there were world-class players everywhere. You had Buffon in goal, World Cup winner, one of the best to ever do it. Chiellini at the back, Bonucci at the back, Barzagli at the back. Patrice Evra, Steven Lichtsteiner, Alexandro, not bad players themselves. Okay, Evra was better than just a not bad player, but he was 35 at that point. In the midfield, you've got Paul Pogba, Sami Khedira, Claudio Marchisio. Pirlo was a few years retired at that point, but again, good players. And up front, you've got Mandzukic, Dybala, Cuadrado, Morata, Young, but he was scoring goals, scored a few goals actually, sent them to the Champions League final. I don't think this team was as good as the Juventus team that lost in the Champions League finals 2 years before that to Barcelona, but this was a good squad. They were world-class players in this team. And now we fast forward 10 years later, and now this is going to be the second year in a row, because I don't think Juventus is going to come back. I might eat my words. I might look stupid by the time this video comes out. I think they play again on the Wednesday of the Champions League playoff round, second set of games. But I don't think Juventus comes back. And this is the second year in a row now where they've lost to what should be inferior competition. And I don't want to necessarily call Galatasaray inferior. Like, they're a fantastic club. They're huge. They've got such a passionate fan base in Istanbul. They went out and spent a crap load of money for the great striker in Victor Osimhen. Leroy Sané's on that team. Like, there's talent on that team. Don't get me wrong. And Galatasaray fully deserved to win this game. And they kicked their ass. I mean, it was 5-2. 5-2 is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous scoreline. That's a ridiculous scoreline for a team of Juventus' stature, for how good of Juventus teams I've seen in my life to be losing by 3 goals away in Turkey. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. It's ridiculous. I'm not even a Juventus fan. But this has just got me worked up because, like, they're Juventus. Like, what the hell? Like, I mean, I get it, though. I've seen it. I've seen it with Italian clubs. I remember the AC Milan of the late 2000s. I was a young man. I was very young. I was a kid. I was just playing FIFA and watching whatever game I could get my hands on. But I remember watching a great AC Milan team. And then AC Milan taking 15 years later to be relevant in Italian football. They're not relevant in Europe yet. They're not relevant on the European stage. But to be relevant in Italian football. And I feel the parallels of how Milan fell off from the powerhouse is what we may be seeing for Juventus. Because this was just an absolutely shocking first leg. And yeah, bear with me there, people. You know, the monologues are better, but reading off of the script for the goals is gonna take some getting used to. But we're gonna keep the ball rolling on the Tuesday games. Next up on Tuesday, we had Monaco hosting PSG. American news, Flo Balogun, our hopeful center forward at the World Cup in 2026, was starting up front. And yeah, he was the man of, maybe not the man of the hour, but he was the man of the first 20 minutes in this game. First minute, PSG send the ball along. They do that. They've got this weird, I mean, I don't think it's weird. Weird's not the best word. It's actually probably like a pretty effective opening kickoff strategy to just send the ball along to the opposite corner, and then the team has a difficult throw in from pretty far back. PSG do that. Doesn't really affect Monaco. They kind of move the ball up the field, and they really just waltzed it right up there and got through PSG easily. They looked like they didn't know what they were doing. They looked like the game hadn't even started yet. Because Monaco just kind of danced right through them, sent it across. Balogun was unmarked at the back post, heads it in easily within 90 seconds, within 60 seconds. Monaco are up 1-0 against PSG. And then in the 18th minute, ball gets sent forward for Monaco. Balogun has it, plays a simple 1-2 up front, gets a little bit of space, has a decent finish, and Monaco are up 2-0 against the reigning European champions and our American. Flo Balogun is a double against PSG. And I remember seeing this live. I was like, oh, something might happen here. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. PSG had a chance actually to respond right away. Wout Weiss, the Monaco defender, he fouls Kivica Kvaratskhelia right away in the box right after the second goal, 20th minute. Vitinha, he steps up to the penalty and he had it saved. And it wasn't a bad penalty. It was just a nice save by the Monaco goalkeeper, Philippe Cohn. And then 6 minutes later, you hate to see it, Ousmane Dembele, a guy who's kind of struggled with injuries for most of his career, who's a fantastic footballer, recent Ballon d'Or winner, a deserving recent Ballon d'Or winner, if I may say that, kind of went off with an injury. It looked, it was one of those, oh God, what's the word? Non-contact injuries. And you hate to see that, especially a guy like him who has struggled with injuries so much in his career to come back, win the Ballon d'Or, and then I don't know what the I'll look it up by the end of this game, but I don't know what the extent ended up being of his injury. But the man who replaced him, Desiree Doué, because PSG are just so blessed up front to have all these options to where Dembele gets hurt, you can call on Doué. Desiree Doué comes in, first touch of the ball, gets the ball in the box. He's on the left side of the box, goes across the goal into, I guess, what would be the right corner, left corner, I don't know, depending on, the goalie's left corner, the attacker's right corner. I've never really known how the hell to call that out. But it was a fantastic finish. Doué sends it into the corner. PSG are now down just one goal. And then the 40th minute, Doué tried to get his double. He sent in a curling effort. It was a good shot, and it was saved well by Cohn, but he pushed it right into the path of Achraf Hakimi. Hakimi's probably the best right back in the world. Now, it wasn't an easy finish. It wasn't like the goals in the Juventus and Galatasaray game where the ball is saved and a guy has a wide open net. Hakimi had a tight angle and not a lot of time. He had a defender closing down on him, and he still managed to get his composure, make a touch, and find the back of the net. And within 22 minutes of Monaco taking a 2-0 lead, PSG had a penalty saved and tied it up. So it goes 2-2 in the halftime, and any thought of Monaco maybe making a game out of this was just not meant to be. Alexander Golovin, however you say it, shouldn't even be talking about him because he really let his team down. It was a pretty stupid foul, penalty. Not penalty, it was a stupid red card. He had his studs up and let his team down. It was a dumb foul, and now you're a man down against the best attacking team in the world. PSG made him pay, but they didn't make him pay too much. He only got one goal out of it. That goal came in the 67th minute, and it was just a beauty. It was super fluid movement down the right side. I mean, 5 guys touched the ball. Kivica, Zaire Emery. It lands with Doué, and he just does a fine finish. He gets his second of the game. PSG go up 3-2, and that was the final score in this one. Again, PSG head to Monaco, and they win 3-2. I had PSG winning this game. I don't think anyone really doubted that. This is, oddly enough, the second year in a row that PSG faced French opposition in the Champions League playoff rounds. I thought it'd be more similar to last year, where they absolutely demolished Brest. Um, it was a 10-0 victory last year. I think it was 3-0 in one game and 7-0 in the other. But no, Monaco, they gave the game to PSG. They had a chance, but PSG's quality just kind of overtook the game. The red card in the 45th, 6th, 7th, whatever the number ended up being minute really just handicapped them. And I think with the tie going back to Paris, this one should be over. But you never know. I mean, Monaco made something out of nothing early on in the game, and they weren't the worst team. But, I mean, PSG had 30 shots on goal. Not on goal, 30 shots. 10 of them were on goal. It could have been worse. It was a good performance. 7 saves by the keeper, Cone. But, yeah, no, I don't see this one working out for Monaco's favor in the return leg. So, I'm going to change up the tune of kind of what I've been saying and how I've been saying it. Next up was Real Madrid traveling to Benfica. I was actually really excited about this match. They played on the last match day of the league phase, and the last minute goal by the Benfica goalkeeper Trubin, the Ukrainian, sent Benfica into the final 24, and it knocks Real Madrid out of the top 8 and made them play 2 extra games. So that was like an incredible moment. That was so incredible to watch live. I, for one, was like really excited for this matchup. In the league phase, Benfica really gave it to Real Madrid. They proved that they could hang, and it could potentially be like a really close tie. And it was for long periods of it. There was one goal. Vinicius Jr. in the 50th minute, he cut it, got the ball down on the left side, attacking left, cut it onto his right foot and hit a banger that there was nothing that the Benfica goalkeeper could do. He celebrated. He went and celebrated. Perfectly fine celebration, because that's important. During the game, an all too familiar thing happens that just keeps happening for some reason in European football. Number 25 on Benfica said some pretty messed up things in the racial sense to Vinicius Jr. Mbappe heard it, Vinny heard it, he went to the referee, and ultimately, because the coward from Benfica covered his mouth with his shirt like this, couldn't really prove anything. You still really can't prove anything. The Benfica fans were hostile towards Vinny all night, throwing things at him. I believe he got hit with a water bottle. And it is just another example of disgusting racism that still continues to plague the game of soccer. You know, I'm not the guy. I don't have the correct words to say on that. I believe the CBS Champions League crew, Jamie Carragher, Michael Richards, Thierry Henry, Kate Scott, they spoke upon it with a very interesting and strong perspective. That's like one I would recommend to watch. Vincent Kompany, the manager at Bayern Munich, spoke on the subject and spoke on it quite well. I'm hoping personally that UEFA do come down against this player from Benfica. I think it's since come out that he said, "Oh no, what I said wasn't racist, it was homophobic." All right, that's still absolutely horrible and terrible, and I hope that I hope the worst for him, frankly, in every regard. You know, Vinicius Jr. his entire career has dealt with just bullshit. I've never really seen him do anything wrong. Players are allowed to, you know, guys can be a heel. It's a wrestling term, but he doesn't. The fact that Vinicius Jr. has to play within a certain mold of a type of player and has to react to things and celebrate things within a certain limit of expectation for him to be not hounded with awful remarks and comments is ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. So now, instead of getting a tie, in which I was excited to watch, there was some prick on Benfica who made these comments. And yeah, no, it's just awful. It's terrible. And I mean, it's something that black players in Europe have been dealing with for years, and social media has only compounded the abuse. And God knows what's going to happen in the following up tie in the Santiago Bernabeu in Madrid. And that's what I have to say about the game. I try to put that as simply as I believe. And I don't really know what the right words were, but it was just it's a stain on the game that's I just can't believe that it's still like that shit's still happening. It's disgusting, and he's a disgusting player, and yeah, it's awful. It's an awful, awful thing. The final game on Tuesday was Dortmund versus Atalanta from the Westfalenstadion Signal Iduna Park. Sorry, quick pause for people yelling outside my apartment. Dortmund hosting Atalanta, a clash of semi-titans, very respectable clubs, but just not the best versions of both of them that we've seen. Kind of hipster teams of sorts, very entertaining to watch over the years, but definitely in that kind of second tier of European club. And, I don't mean that in a disparaging way. Like, I don't mean that poorly, but it is what it is. They're second tier clubs. But this was another Tuesday game with an early goal. So let's get into it. 3rd minute, Dortmund send the ball forward. They had kind of a break, but Atalanta deal with it, but they don't really deal with it. Like, they don't clear it. They don't regain possession. Dortmund are just kind of passing it around for a minute, and then a ball is sent across the goal by Julian Ryerson, and it finds the head of the massively underrated center forward, Serhou Guirassy, for Dortmund, and just like that, they are up 3-0. I believe it was Guirassy's 4th goal in the Champions League so far this season. He's kind of been the bright spark on Dortmund in the last 2 years, definitely the best player. Definitely the best player there, maybe since like Bellingham's left. And then later in the first half, 42nd minute, Dortmund playing it out of the back, eventually finds some space to Guirassy on the left wing. Nice little through ball. He drives it down, sends a nice low cross, and finds Max Bayer on the back post. And Dortmund have doubled their lead. They're up 2-0 going into halftime. That would be the final score in the game. It was an alright game. I mean, it was, for a multitude of reasons, probably the least exciting on Tuesday. Actually, probably the one I was most looking forward to. And yeah, I mean, it was all right. Dortmund now have a pretty sizable lead that they can head back to northern Italy. And yeah, provided some miracle comeback by Atalanta, they should be all right. I mean, Atalanta has seen their coach change this year. They've seen their prolific forward, Lookman, move to Atletico Madrid. So I'm not really pegging them to do this. We move on to Wednesday. We're moving to Wednesday. There's another 4 games. It's kind of hard because you go through like the league phase, and like I would watch the league phase and it was like you got 9 games on Tuesday. You got 9 games on Wednesday. And then you get like 36 between the Conference League and the Europa League on and like if you're watching the Goal of Soul show, which I have nothing to do with CBS. CBS don't pay me. Nobody pays me really. I have probably, I don't even know, like more than 10 people are going to watch this or listen to this. But CBS's coverage of the Goal of Soul show is just phenomenal. And I love watching it. It's like Red Zone, but it's better. And I love me some NFL Red Zone. But I think the Goal of Soul show is where it's at. There's just so many games on, so much action. So dialing it back to just 4 games on a Tuesday or a Wednesday can be tough. But this Wednesday was kind of crazy. And the first game up was Karabag versus Newcastle United. And I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna talk about the game first, and then we're gonna run about the goals, because there was a lot of goals, and I don't want to just get lost in just goal. Let's actually talk about the game first. I thought that there may be slight potential of maybe not an upset in this game, but a close game. Because if you look at Karabag's results in the Champions League this season, I thought, like, for a club from Azerbaijan, I think that's incredibly impressive. So going into this, I thought, okay, maybe they have a chance. Maybe they could just catch Newcastle on a bad day. That's not what happened. Newcastle went however many miles, very many miles, a lot for a European, not that much for an American. And they beat the shit out of them. It was, sorry for my bad words, the show is PG-13. Yeah, no, it was brutal. It finished 6-1. 4 of those were scored by Anthony Gordon, all in the first half. So, let's run through these goals real quick. Alright, 3rd minute. A quick ball forward to Anthony Gordon, just right up the middle. First time finish, 1-0 Newcastle. 8th minute, Newcastle try a corner routine. They fail. Trippier gets a second chance on a cross. Kieran Trippier has been one of the best crossers in all of Europe. Malik Thiaw gets his head on it, goes across the goalkeeper, 2-0 Newcastle. 30th minute, there was a penalty awarded to Newcastle. Ball was handballed by Karabag, I think deflecting a shot or something in the box. Anthony Gordon steps up, gets his second goal of the night, 3-0 Newcastle. 33rd minute, Karabag, right off the kickoff, just kind of dance with it too much. They mishandle it. Gordon gets on it, makes it 4-0, gets his hat trick, a first half hat trick. And then the 45th minute, kind of similar. Gordon just tracking someone down, gets the ball, gets the turnover. And some guys wanted to take the penalty. Gordon was like, no, this is my penalty. I'm taking it. And he scores 4 goals in the first half. I mean, hell, when's the last time you saw someone score 4 in the Champions League in an entire game? But this young man had 4 goals within 45 minutes. And then coming out of halftime when it was 5-0, Karabag actually got on the scoreboard themselves. Elvin Kafarkuliev. He looked offsides. I think it was after a corner. VAR said he wasn't, so hey, what do I know? And fine strike. It was low, and it was just a little too much for Nick Pope to handle. Karabag, if you're going to get beat, at least get on the scoreboard. And then in the 72nd minute, Newcastle, again, Jacob Murphy cut from the right wing onto his left foot. His shot got a sizable deflection to beat the goalkeeper, but I guess it was on target because it wasn't ruled an own goal. And just like that, Newcastle won 6-1. Talk about the game a little bit more. I think Newcastle is one of those teams that nobody in Europe is going to want to face. They're going to be tricky, especially games back in St. James's Park. They're definitely a team that I think can pull off an upset, especially I think they're kind of settled into a mid-table position. They may not get Europe again unless they make a run in the FA Cup, which I could be speaking out of my ass because they could be eliminated and I just don't realize it. And and I'm a sucker for green, and I'm not even a Newcastle supporter. I mean, I'm wearing a green shirt myself. Hell, this Noah Khan shirt. And Newcastle, I like their green kits. The Adidas stripe on the side, I'm digging it. I like it. It's nice. So yeah, that was the first game. 7 goals, a lot to talk about. Going back to St. James's Park, I mean, pigs will fly before Karabag comes back from that 5-goal deficit in the north of England. Next up, we got Bodo Glimt versus Inter Milan. Take these headphones off. The Norwegian team that has been giving fits to everyone this season. They've been the story. They've just been an incredible story. They're hosting Inter Milan. This game was pretty different for 2 reasons. One, the game was north of the Arctic Circle. You don't really see that a lot. And then because we were in reindeer territory, there was artificial turf. You don't really see that a lot in soccer. As an American, I grew up playing on artificial turf. Artificial turf is something you see all the time. But to see it in a Champions League game is kind of surprising. And I guess being so far north, maybe having the turf, it gave an advantage to Bodo Glimt. Because in the 20th minute, when we got our first goal of the game, it wasn't from Inter. It was from Bodo Glimt. They ran right through the middle of the field with quick passing. I mean, they carved Inter up like they were playing a semi-pro side. And, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sondre Brunstad-Fett has an opportunity on goal, and Bodo's up 1-0, if you can believe it. Normalcy was kind of restored in the 30th minute. A ball was sent into the box for Inter. After the initial header, it lands nicely at the feet of the youngster Pio Esposito. He does well to finish it and tie the game up 1-1. And the game goes back and forth. You feel like Inter's been the better team, but the attacking threat of Bodo Glimt in this game was just incredible. 61st minute, Inter turned the ball over. The bright yellow jerseys of Bodo Glimt just felt like they were everywhere. They all pounced on it. It kind of reminds you of early 2010 Borussia Dortmund Gegenpress, and the way it just felt like all those yellow jerseys were collapsing on the ball. They quickly counter. Bang, bang, bang. Fine finish. Their number 10, Jens Petter Hauge, who I talked about earlier in the year, scoring goals in the Champions League. I don't even know if the Norwegian season is playing. Sorry, I don't want to get too much into the Bodo story yet. 64th minute, another goal. Did Inter tie it up? No. Bodo went up 3-1. And then it was another easy goal. They just tore him up right through the middle. And Kasper Hug scores the easiest goal of his goddamn career in the Champions League. And that was it. That was the final score. Bodo Glimt 3, Inter Milan 1. It feels like for the second year in a row, Italian teams are making an absolute mess of it in the Champions League playoff round. I mean, I know Inter did make it to the final last year where they got spanked, but they still made it to the final last year. You know, they've kind of really been the only Italian team that's been doing anything in Europe. And this result is just incredible. Bodo Glimt is an incredible story. I mean, even going back to, I don't remember if it was in the Conference League or Europa League, where they faced Jose Mourinho's Roma. Sorry for the pause, don't want to sneeze on screen. And they beat him 6-1. Jose Mourinho came out and said it was the worst defeat of his career. You know, they've gotten points off teams. You know, they gave Tottenham fits last year, Man City this year, Juventus this year. And yeah, there were large stretches of the game where Inter Milan were in control. Obviously, Inter Milan are the better team, but they didn't play the better game. And the Bodo Glimt story just continues to be impressive. You know, and they're not even a mainstay of Norwegian football. Like, there are better known Norwegian teams. This was a yo-yo club for years. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen written on it was by some person on the Football Manager Reddit page. I mean, their story of just their philosophy, and you know, they're not there to just sell players, they want to make money. It's incredible, and they're playing incredible soccer. You know, I don't know if they'll go back to the San Siro in this time. Probably by the time you're listening to this, I don't know if they're going to go to the San Siro and get a result. But if you've been paying attention to the Olympics, Norwegians aren't doing too bad in Milan right now. Anything's possible. I think there is a really good chance for Inter to come back. I mean, in front of 80,000 fans in one of the most famous stadiums in Europe that should not be torn down. But that's a whole nother story for another day. I think the comeback could be on. But regardless, I'm just going to enjoy this Bodo Glimt story as long as it runs. And they didn't play like underdogs. So I don't even know if I want to call it an underdog story. Next up was Atletico Madrid going to Belgium to play Club Brugge. Getting this started, 8th minute. Awkward handball from Club Brugge off a corner. One of the defenders. Sometimes there's really nothing you can do about that. Julian Alvarez steps up for Atletico. He hits it with power, and I think the goalkeeper for Brugge, former Liverpool keeper Simon Mignolet, I think maybe he was expecting him to just go down the middle because he stood still. And Alvarez's shot just powered right past him. Right before halftime, Atletico Madrid had a corner. It was sent in, flicked on by the head of Antoine Griezmann. And their recent signing, a guy who I just talked about, that Atalanta may be missing him, Ademola Lookman, was at the back post to put it away and get his first Champions League goal for his new club. Going into halftime, Atletico Madrid are up 2-0. 51st minute, though, coming out of halftime, Brugge get a corner kick. The initial header on the first shot was saved well by club legendary goalkeeper Jan Oblak, but the first man to the ball after the save was Rafael Onyedika, and now it's a 2-1 game. 9 minutes later, Brugge tied it up. There was some decent wing play on the left. The low cross was sent in to the near post, and Nicolo Tresoldi, gets ahead of his defender and makes it 2-2. And just like that, Brugge are up. Or now they're up. They're tied. Wow, really fumbling over my words here. Atletico Madrid, though, retake the lead in the 79th minute. They were pressuring. The goal actually kind of felt inevitable. A ball is sent in towards the back post, and you kind of hate to see what happened. It was an own goal. It come off the foot of Brugge player Joel Ordonez. I think he was trying to hit it out for a corner. It's what he should have been doing. Sorloth, the Atletico forward, was there on the back post. So, you know, if he'd have missed it, Sorloth probably would have scored. But I think the intention was to hit it out for a corner, which he probably should have been able to do. But 10 minutes later, his teammates bail him out. Brugge kind of catch Atletico upfield, especially for a team known for their defense being up a goal. The ball gets sent down the left side to Christos Solis. It was originally ruled offsides, but it wasn't. His finish gets past Jan Oblak, and at home, Brugge tie it up 3-3 against Atletico Madrid for a high-scoring game. I'm not going to say I didn't see that coming, because Belgian clubs have been incredibly strong in Europe in the last few years. You know, you've got your big five. You know, you got your England, Spain, Italy, Germany, France. And then right below them, you know, you got your Portugal and the Netherlands. You know, they've kind of always been, you know, sometimes people call it the big seven, the top seven, whatever. Belgium in the last few years has been that eighth best team or country in Europe. And I think you could even make an argument that they've outperformed Netherlands, Portugal, and maybe even everyone in France outside of PSG. Now I'm really nitpicking there, but you get the point. I mean, yes, I don't know if Bruges are going to get out of this tie. I don't have some crystal ball. If I did, I would have bought a winning lottery ticket years ago. But the game's tied heading back to Madrid. I was trying to think of the stadium, and I was about to refer to Atletico's old stadium. But Bruges' record in Europe in the last few years has just been really impressive. I mean, 22-23, they come out of a tough Champions League group with Bayer Leverkusen, Porto, and Atletico Madrid, and they get knocked out by Benfica. Conference League, the next year, they get through the playoff rounds, get out of their group, knockout mold, knockout pack, go down and lose 1 goal to Fiorentina. Champions League last year, get through the league phase. They get Atalanta, a club that I thought was going to defeat them last year. They beat them 5-2 in aggregate. Yes, they got Aston Villa in the round of 16, and they were disposed of. But that's an impressive run. I mean, they beat Villa in the league phase. They drew Celtic. They beat Sporting. They held their own against Manchester City and Milan. And then this year, they get through the playoff round. They beat Monaco. They drew Barcelona. They beat Marseille. Now, they had some bad, you know, they had tough results against Bayern Munich and Sporting and Arsenal. But, no, I mean, Bruges and a couple other, like Ghent, Genk, these Belgian clubs have just been massively impressive. And I think even if Bruges are eliminated on this stage, I still think it's a massive accomplishment. I still think it's something they can really hang their heads on, you know, take the money and run. It's just going to further elevate, you know, the amount of UEFA coefficient points, though I don't think that matters as much as it used to. But yeah, no, I mean, these Belgian teams have just been trap games. They're not one you want to mess with. And that leaves us with one final game on Wednesday. So yeah, that's the wrap up the Club Bruges Atletico Madrid. I really don't have much more on that point. Jumped ahead with my words there. Again, you know, used to podcasting, trying this on YouTube. Don't know how it's going to look. But again, if you're here, I don't know how long we're into it. I don't know, maybe 30-ish minutes. It's going to be a long one. I'm really surprised how much longer the video format is taking me. It's going to be a bitch to edit, I can tell you that. But if you're here and you're enjoying my ramblings and just amalgamation of different words, I used a big one there. Been playing some Scrabble. Like, comment, subscribe, and if I have managed to successfully transfer the audio file from this video to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, leave a good rating, enjoy it there too. So that leaves us with one final Champions League game. We've talked about all these Champions League games. We have one left to go. That was Olympiacos hosting Bayer Leverkusen. Let's get into it. Olympiacos from Greece, Bayer Leverkusen, a recent champion, not the most recent, but a recent champion from Germany. Olympiacos wins most years in Greece, so it's pretty safe to say they're the recent champion. All right, getting this started, 45th minute. I thought Olympiacos, or not, I don't know if it would technically be the 45th minute, but right before halftime, I thought Olympiacos scored. But there was an offsides in the build-up, and it was called back. So we go into halftime of this game, and it was tight. It was a tight affair. I thought Bayer Leverkusen may be the better team, but I know Olympiacos away could be kind of tricky, and there is some talent on this team that has recently won the Conference League. But the 2 goals of the game would happen, and they happen in quick succession. 60th minute, Bayer Leverkusen find themselves with a pretty open counterattack for that stage of the game. A pass finds Patrick Schick with time and space, and his finish was nice. He puts it away past the keeper, and then less than 3 minutes later, Schick got his double. Corner, he was at the front post, just a nice flick, and with just the quick nature of it all, it was nothing the Olympiacos goalkeeper could do. And that was it. It was 2-0. That was the final score. This was kind of like the boring game of Wednesday, if I had to give it to one. It was a little closer than I thought it was going to be, and I don't know if Leverkusen necessarily deserved to walk out of there with a 2-0 lead, but, you know, this isn't a game where the most deserving team always wins. Not that they didn't deserve it. It was a little closer than maybe if you just looked at the scoreline. And yeah, that was it from the Champions League. Those were our 8 Champions League fixtures. Again, by the time you're listening to this or watching this, the second leg may have happened. So this may be outdated information. I probably won't like compile it into like a reel or a TikTok or anything, because if I post like, oh, so and so we're so much the better team, and then they come back and they blow us the second leg, they blow it in the second leg, that's not gonna look too great for me. I'm gonna look dumb. But I always look dumb. I think I'm gonna look dumb because I really don't know the nature of a video like this. Like, if I record on one day and I'm wearing this shirt, should I wear the same shirt later in the video? Because I know all the way at the end of this, the last thing I'm going to talk about, maybe not the last thing I'm going to talk about, but the last game of relevance of everything I wanted to cover in this video is Man United and Everton on Monday. And it's not Monday yet. So I may have to throw this shirt back on. Or maybe I'll change it. I don't know. I don't know what the best way to go. But yeah, that was the Champions League. And we're going to move on to the Europa League and the Conference League. And I love these competitions. I think they're massively entertaining. I think they can rival the Champions League in levels of how entertaining it is. But with the nature of how long these videos take and what I want to accomplish with this podcast/YouTube channel, I don't have the time to go into the Conference League and Europa League in depth. That will probably change come the quarterfinals round, because at that point it's 4 Champions League ties, 4 Conference League ties, 4 Europa League ties. I mean, that's still a lot, but I will have more time to do that, and I probably will then. But just for now, I'm just going to run through the scores and kind of tell you what piqued my interest. Like, what did I think was interesting there? But I'm going to mention all of them, all 16 between the 2 competitions. So we're going to do the Europa League first, the B tier, the second level of European football. You know, a great competition, though I do wish that there was some way they can incorporate teams coming down from the Champions League, because it just doesn't feel like as valuable of a trophy as it used to be. No shade to Tottenham, but... All right, let's run through this together. First matchup, the Belgian teams keep doing their thing. Genk travels to Croatia to play Dinamo Zagreb, who's usually a pretty good side, but Genk comes out of that with a 3-1 victory. Nottingham Forest, they go to Fenerbahce, and Fenerbahce's got like some talent. There's some real talent on this team, but Forest just keep that good European experience that English teams have been having so far this season, rolling with a 3-0 victory. Celta Vigo travel to Greece and get past PAC with a 2-1 victory. Bologna travel all the way north to Norway to get a 1-0 victory over Brann. Stuttgart travel to Celtic and kind of beat the brakes off them with a 4-1 win. The surprise of the round to me, Red Star Belgrade traveled to Lille and get a 1-0 victory over the French team. Ludogorets Razgrad out of Bulgaria gets a 2-1 victory over Ferencvaros. And the last game was Panathinaikos getting a 2-2 draw with Victoria Pilsen. Panathinaikos from Greece, Pilsen from the Czech Republic. All right, now for the Conference League, and if I butcher any of these team names, I do sincerely apologize. Noah out of Armenia gets a 1-0 victory over AZ Alkmaar from the Netherlands. Lech Poznan from Poland travels 2-0 to defeat KUPS. I'm so sorry. From Finland, 2-0. Go to Czechia, Sigma Olomouc. Played as them in Football Manager, so maybe I should know how to say that better. They draw 1-1 with Lausanne Sports, who I believe is from Switzerland. Crystal Palace travel to Bosnia to play Zrinski Mostar and only managed to get a 1-1 draw, though they should be all right in the return leg. Kelja from, I want to say it's a Slovenian club, travel to Kosovo to play Drita, get a 3-2 victory. Fiorentina travel to Poland to play Jagiellonia Białystok and get a 3-0 victory. Turkish side, Sam Sunspor travel to Macedonia to face Scandizia, get a 1-0 victory. And the final matchup is Rijeka from Croatia, travel to Omonia Nicosia from Cyprus and pick up a 1-0 victory. Now, there was a couple other things that happened on this Tuesday to Thursday period that I want to talk about personally. There was some Women's Champions League matchups. I know Real Madrid defeated Paris FC. Arsenal advanced to the quarterfinals on Thursday. Wolfsburg got past Juventus, and then Manchester United got past Atletico. That's a cool competition that I like to keep an eye out. And then going on this week, I want to touch on this one really quick, is the CONCACAF Champions Cup. The CONCACAF Champions Cup is super cool to me. The CONCACAF Champions Cup is the North American Champions League. And it is how North American teams get to go to the Intercontinental Cup and the FIFA Club World Cup. And I like the North American Champions League because it is the most fair scenario in which you'll see American teams play Mexican teams. And I say that, when I say American, actually I mean MLS, because that does extend to Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. Mexican teams and American teams play together in the Leagues Cup, but that doesn't really feel like fair. They're usually in America. It's definitely geared towards the American teams. The North American Champions Cup, the CONCACAF Champions Cup, Mexican and American teams have to play each other home and away on soil. And, it's going on throughout the episodes. I know 6 ties will wrap up in next week's episode. There's been another 5 that have already finished. It's kind of an awkward tournament because there's 27 teams that enter, and this is the first round. The next round will be the round of 16. As for American versus Mexican matchups, or Canadian versus Mexican matchups, San Diego FC got past Pumas 4-2. Mexican side Cruz Azul got past Vancouver, but it's actually it's not the Vancouver Whitecaps, it's Vancouver FC. I started to say that, and then I was writing it, and I was like, oh wait, no, this isn't right. And I think that's the only MLS versus Liga MX matchup was San Diego FC over Pumas. So that's kind of a, swing towards the, point towards the American League. I know the rest of the American and Mexican teams haven't really had too much difficulty. Philadelphia Union, FC Cincinnati, LAFC, Nashville SC should move on pretty easily. LA Galaxy and Vancouver Whitecaps had a little more difficulty in their matchups. But yeah, this is also a competition that I think if we get down to the quarterfinal phase, I'll probably pay a little more attention to. And I think it'll only get better when the MLS transitions to the European style calendar. Calendar's the word. Oh man, do I edit out these little blips? But no, I'm gonna keep them in, show you how authentic I am. And yeah, that was everything that went on midweek except one thing. There was one Premier League game that happened during midweek. It was number 1 versus number 20. On Wednesday, Arsenal had to travel to Wolves. And you may be wondering to yourself, I'm skipping over some Serie A and La Liga, but whatever. You may ask yourself, why is there one Premier League matchup this week? Well, Arsenal are playing Manchester City in the League Cup. And that will take place March 31st. Or March 22nd. One of the last weekends of March. Whatever weekend isn't the international window. So it actually may be March 22nd. I might have realized my mistake as soon as I said it. Arsenal were supposed to play Wolves that weekend. And Manchester City were supposed to play Crystal Palace. So the Premier League scheduled this week to be the makeup round. But Man City and Palace can't play because Palace had a Conference League matchup that we just talked about. So the only game in the Premier League this week were league leaders Arsenal traveling to the worst team in the league, one of the worst teams we've seen in the Premier League, Wolves. So let's talk about that game. So there are 4 goals in this game. And the game started out really well for Arsenal. 5th minute, Declan Rice sends in a cross. Bukayo Saka, who had just signed a contract with Arsenal, gets a header. 5th minute, they go up 1-0. And then the game kind of slows down. There shifts momentum. Wolves came out in the second half the better team. 56th minute, ball to Piero Hincapié, sends him through. He gets some pressure. Decent not first time finish, but decent finish, 1-on-1 with the keeper. And when it goes to a VAR check, it's ruled to be onside. Arsenal are up 2-0. So you got the team that's top of the Premier League up 2-0 against the team that's bottom of the Premier League, actually having one of the worst Premier League seasons in history. Arsenal blow it. I mean, yeah, they did. First goal was just a banger. I've seen some criticism online on David Raya's positioning on this goal, but I really don't think there's anyone on planet Earth that was going to stop this wonderful curling effort by Hugo Bueno. And then in the 94th minute, Arsenal were kind of showing some shady tactics to put the game away. Leandro Trossard, he actually ended up coming out of the game with what happened, but it looked like he dove. He wouldn't get off the field. Cross gets sent in. David Raya goes up for it. Gabriel goes up for it. They're both on Arsenal. There's no Wolves player around, but the Arsenal goalie and the Arsenal center back go up for it. They make a mess of it. It lands at the feet of the youngster, Tom Edozie. He puts a strike. Calafiori, standing on the line, made a valiant effort to block it, hits the post, comes back off him, goes in the goal. I originally thought it might be counted as an own goal, but it wasn't. And the final score, coming back from a 2-0 deficit, Wolves 2, Arsenal 2. It feels like sometimes that Arsenal is the only thing that can stop Arsenal. Because, yes, you've been playing 2 games a week for a while now, and that's got to be exhausting, and I think Arteta could really be doing a better job with his rotating. But this is a game you have to win. If you want to be champions, you have to win this game. And you almost have to question, do they want to be fucking champions? Really. The mistakes and just the effort, and they couldn't hold the ball. They were just clearing it back to Wolves. That was, indicative of a game where it should be the opposite. Where Wolves are sustaining pressure and the best they can do is clear it to Arsenal. But the worst team in the Premier League, a team that has been most of the season on pace to get the lowest points total ever in Premier League history, gave the game to Arsenal and fully deserved those 2 points. So that's now the second midweek in a row where Arsenal have gone on the road and really just disappointed, giving up a late goal for a draw. And there's a certain team in the title race with them that is breathing down their necks. You gotta wonder, what the hell were Arsenal doing? It was an atrocious viewing if you're an Arsenal fan. It was awful. And that was the one Premier League game. So that sets the tempo going into the weekend. And we're going to get the weekend games. So that was all the midweek. And again, that's what I try to do. I want to do the midweek games first, and then we'll go to the weekend. So let's go to the weekend. Let's transition to the weekend. So unfortunately, with the time constraints that I have as a human being whose podcast/YouTube channel is not their main source of income, I have a limited amount of time to talk about every league. So I'm going to run through La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, and then we're going to talk Premier League in depth. I know it's not fair to the fans of those leagues, but time is a limited value quantity thing that I have. And it's a shame because the title races in, mainly just Spain, to be honest, are pretty interesting in my opinion. And also because there was a shakeup in the Spanish title race. So, let's run through the 10 Spanish games. First off on Friday, Athletic Bilbao get a 2-1 victory over Elche. Real Sociedad on Saturday draw Real Oviedo. Real Betis draw Rayo Vallecano. Atletico Madrid get a 4-2 victory over Espanyol going on this Sunday. Sevilla get a 1-0 victory over Getafe. Celta Vigo, 2-0 victory over Mallorca. Villarreal, who were atrocious, pretty awful on, they were pretty awful in the Champions League. They're doing well in Spain. And there's one Monday game that I will hit on. We're going to do all the Monday games at the end because, it's the weekend. I'm still wearing the same shirt. And these Monday games are a pain that I have to do last minute Monday night. So there's 2 games that I didn't mention because there's 2 teams at the front of this title race. And shocker, shocker, shocker. For the millionth season in a row, it's Barcelona and Real Madrid. Now, Villarreal are only 10 points behind them in 3rd. Atletico Madrid are 3 points behind them in 4th. There's a little bit of a gap before Real Betis are in 5th. I don't know what I'm still unsure what league is going to get the second Champions League bonus spot. The first one's obviously going to be England, unless all English teams manage to lose their ties dramatically, which I just don't see happening. It's going to be England, and then whoever it is going to be. So I'm gonna really highlight the top 5 of all the leagues. And then you got Mallorca, Levante, Real Oviedo down at the bottom, relegation. Sorry if my storytelling is all over the place. But coming into this weekend, Real Madrid were sitting at 60 points, Barcelona were sitting at 58 points. And Real Madrid were up first, and they traveled to Osasuna. Osasuna are a mid-table side right now. They're ninth after this result. They're up 2-1. yes, there were some dramatics and there was a lot of attention coming off of the controversial midweek tie against Benfica, which I don't really want to get into again. But Osasuna goes up in the 38th minute with a penalty. Vinny Jr. ties it up in the 73rd minute. And then shockingly, Raul Garcia wins the game for Osasuna 2-1 in Pamplona. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And it was kind of a closer game than it really should have been. It wasn't like they had 2 chances and then just picked off something in the end. Like, no, they fully deserved it. And, I'm watching it now. Again, Real Madrid's defense on that final goal was atrocious. I have a Real Madrid fan friend, and he was very upset, borderline despondent. So, with that result, Barcelona then wake up on Sunday. They've got Levante at home, who are a relegation side. And they know if they just get the job done in the Camp Nou, the Spotify Camp Nou, they can take the top of the league back. Goal from Marc Bonal in the 4th minute, Frankie de Jong in the 32nd minute, and Fermin Lopez put it away in the 81st minute. Barcelona win 3-0, and they're back at the top of the league. So with 13 games to go, which is kind of crazy because it's a lot less than the Premier League, they're really packing these games in towards the end of the season. Barcelona have a 1-0 lead. 1-0. A 1-point lead. I'm spilling over my words. And because it's on video, and I'm looking at the video, there's nothing I can do about it. Barcelona got a 1-point advantage in the table over Real Madrid. And yes, it's the same story we've seen a million times, but I think it's still going to be really entertaining. And that final matchup between the two is going to be great. And then we move to Bundesliga. And the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich really pulled ahead for large parts of the season. I mean, I've said on record, yes, I'm not really good at producing a lot of these podcasts, but I have said, the title's over. We get to this weekend, and it was actually closer than I'd checked in a while. I'd gotten away from Bundesliga, and that's on me. But there's another team hanging on, and we'll get into it. So the games that don't really matter in terms of the title fight. Mainz drew Hamburg. Union Berlin got a nice 1-0 victory over Bayer Leverkusen. Cologne drew Hoffenheim 2-2 on Saturday. Wolfsburg lost at home to Augsburg 2-3. Freiburg on Sunday defeated Borussia Mönchengladbach 2-1. FC St. Pauli defeated Werder Bremen 2-1. And Heidenheim drew Stuttgart 3-3. So Dortmund is kind of hanging on with Bayern. Bayern has 19 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss, and a ridiculous amount of goals scored. Dortmund has 15 wins, 7 draws, and 1 loss. A little less goals scored. But they're only coming into this 6 points behind Bayern. And yes, I just said the team's records after the results. But on Saturday, they both played. Bayern had Frankfurt at home. It was a close one. Frankfurt has been a tricky side in years past, but Bayern were able to see it through. Harry Kane got a double. They went up 3-0. Alexander Pavlovic got the other goal for Bayern. They survived 2 late goals and were able to see the game out. Dortmund, on the other hand, had a tricky game, had to travel to RB Leipzig, went down 2-0. They fought back well, got a final goal, Fabio Silva in the 95th minute, and they made it 2-2. I don't know if this one will turn out to be a title race, I mean, 1 or 2 bad Bayern results, and maybe it's something, but Dortmund has... I haven't been paying attention to Dortmund this season, and maybe that's on me. Maybe that over the next couple of weeks that'll change. But similar to the Premier League, there's 11 games left in this league. Hoffenheim and Stuttgart are taking up the 4th and 5th spot, which is a little surprising. Not as much for Stuttgart, but definitely for the impressive season so far from Hoffenheim. And then Leipzig is 5th. Leverkusen's down in 6th. Werder Bremen and Heidenheim are taking up the 2 relegation spots, which is a shame because Werder Bremen is a pretty semi-successful side in Germany in the last couple of years. And then St. Pauli is sitting in the relegation playoff with, I believe, the 3rd place team from the Bundesliga 2. Sorry, my German let me down. All right, 3rd league before the Premier League, before we can start to wrap up this show, before we get into and then we'll talk Premier League, and then we'll have to get to the Monday games because I'm going to finish this Sunday night, but then I realize I'm going to have to talk about games on Monday because one of them is Manchester United. So next up is Serie A, Italy, the Italian league. I thought for a while that this was going to be the most interesting title race, and one team is kind of pulling away, aka they're just not dropping results as much. So we'll skip over all the teams that don't have, 50 or over points in depth. Sassuolo got past JS Verona's 3-0. Juventus shockingly drew. Not shockingly, actually. This team's been good. Como goes to Juventus and picks up a 2-0 victory. Juventus is just, they're fifth, but they're in shambles compared to where they've been in the past. Cagliari draw Lazio with a 0-0 game. Genoa they host Torino, get a 3-0 victory. And then we got to talk about the other ones, the big ones, the big matchups. So, everyone's chasing Inter Milan. Inter Milan has a lead on everyone else. So, how do the teams chasing Inter Milan respond? Well, most of them responded poorly. Inter Milan played Lecce on Saturday and got a 2-0 victory. So, for the teams chasing, AC Milan, Napoli, and Roma. And Roma's a good bit behind them, especially with the fact that Serie A has the most games played. Excuse me, no, they don't. They don't. I lied. They have one less game played in the Premier League. The window to catch Inter Milan is closing. So what do these teams do? Napoli lose to Atalanta. Now they had to travel to Atalanta, and that can be tough. Atalanta is not a half bad squad. They lose 2-1. Milan hosts Parma. Christian Pulisic back in the lineup. Parma down in 12th, who've scored 18 goals this season coming into this game. They made it 19. They got that final goal off of AC Milan and picked up a victory. The only team that could potentially challenge Inter for the title, and I don't think they will because they're 14 points behind them. Yeah, actually, that's huge. 14's a huge gap with 12 games left. But Roma did pick up a 3-0 victory over Jamie Vardy's Cremonese. There are two Monday Serie A games that I will hit towards the end of this episode. I'll just run through them quickly like the way I've run through the rest of the Serie A matchups. And that's Fiorentina hosting Pisa and Bologna hosting Udinese. So, that leaves us with the 10 games. 9. I'm saying 9 because, again, it's I haven't got to the Monday games yet. But it's time to talk Premier League. The one thing I've noticed, and I don't know why, and I don't know, maybe it goes against what's important in German English soccer, but the Premier League doesn't play on Fridays. But every other, like Italy, Spain, and Germany do. I wonder why is that? Why? I know the classic English 3 o'clock on a Saturday, but never. I know they have like a Friday night to start the season, but I don't know. Pointless. Just adding time to this video. I don't know why. Don't need it. Jumping in the Premier League on Saturday, first game up, Aston Villa hosting Leeds United. Two teams on the opposite end of the table. Villa pushing for Champions League and maybe a title, and Leeds obviously trying not to get relegated. Looking at the starting lineups, Leeds had American Brendan Aronson up front and kind of maybe like an attacking midfielder, shadow striker role, but great just to see him get minutes prior to this World Cup. As you get the game started, 13th minute, early save by Emi Martinez, the Aston Villa goalkeeper. It was a nice through ball to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I for sure thought he was going to score. Leeds would score though in the 31st minute. Absolute banger of a free kick. So they get this free kick. It's like 25 yards out. Let me explain this one to you. And Emi Martinez is anticipating a cross. And I feel as though most goalkeepers would be anticipating a cross. But Leeds United right winger Anton Stack, he didn't cross it. He went for it. And I think, the announcer said if Emi Martinez had been a yard in one direction, he would have saved it. If that shot wasn't picture perfect in the left corner, he probably would have saved it. But it was incredible. Again, I implore you to look it up. I can't obviously show it for copyright reasons, but I seriously recommend you look up this shot. It was truly fantastic. Leeds were kind of in control away at Villa most of the game. It went 1-0 Leeds in the halftime. Through most of the second half, it was 1-0 Leeds. But then in the 88th minute, Aston Villa won a corner. Konsa gets his head on it, sends it back towards just this giant crowd of people because hovering right in front of the goalkeeper that Arsenal's done is slowly heading towards all the rage in the Premier League. And Tammy Abraham, the man who's just back in the Premier League with Aston Villa, gets his thigh on it, barely, sends a looping ball over the head of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He can't do anything about it, and the game finishes 1-1. That was the goal that tied it up. And frankly, I would say it's actually a pretty disappointing result for Villa. Manchester City and Arsenal, even results from this weekend aside, I think have ultimately disappointed in their, title race. Like, they've dropped points so many times in the last 2 months. And Villa was right behind the pack. And you could make an argument like, okay, Villa, like you're still in this. You still have a very good chance of doing something, and games like this just prove that they're a step behind a title fight. And Leeds, they're trying to not get relegated, and to have a lead for 87 minutes and 32 seconds and to see it all go away with a fluky corner, just it'll sting them right in the heart, right in the sweet spot. So we're going to keep Saturday rolling. Next up was Brentford versus Brighton. Getting this game started off, 30th minute, Kara Matoma on the left wing for Brighton lays off a simple pass to the left back, Ferdy Kadioglu, who he tried a worldie of a shot. I mean, he set in a long curler, kind of reminiscent of the free kick I just talked about. This one didn't score though, rattled off the post, and it landed perfectly at the feet of right winger Diego Gomez, puts the shot away. Kaimine Keller, the Brentford keeper, had no shot. Brighton were up 1-0. And then right before halftime, 46th minute, a ball is sent up the right side in Brighton's attack. Midfielder Jack Hinchelwood, he was a little bit further up than you'd expect for a midfielder. He was leading the line for Brighton. Gets the ball, sends in a quick cross. Nathan Collins, the Brentford defender who had just been subbed in, like this was his first touch on the ball, does frankly a horrible job at attempting to clear it, and it lands right at the feet of Danny Welbeck. He's a very experienced forward who's been in the Premier League for a long time. He doubles Brighton's lead with Brighton's lead to 2-0, and that was the final score at the end of the game. But the main talking point in this game was none other than James Milner. James Milner set the record for Premier League appearances with 654, which is insane. It's his 654th Premier League appearance, going back to the 2002-2003 season where I was 3 years old. That's how long he's been playing. 48 appearances for Leeds United, 94 appearances for Newcastle, 100 appearances for Aston Villa, 147 for Manchester City, 230 with Liverpool, and now this is the 35th appearance he's made for Brighton and Hove Albion. I mean, just a consistently good player, a Swiss Army knife of a player, a guy you could plug into like 18 different positions, works hard, puts his head down, a guy every manager would love to have. And I think that goes without saying. I mean, he's got a good, record as well. 3 Premier Leagues. He's got a Champions League under his belt. I mean, he's gonna be a Premier League Hall of Famer. He has been just a wonderful player to watch over the years. Congratulations, James Milner. If you end up seeing this, congratulations. 654 appearances. It's freaking wild. A lot of people brought up about the minutes he's had, because he's actually not close to the top of the minutes. But, I mean, Man City, again, Man City and Liverpool, he spent 13 years with 2 of the better teams in the Premier League, so you're not going to get minutes week in, week out. And actually, the next game he plays will be his 900th senior club appearance. So that's counting like Europe, Cups, a little bit of a loan in the second division 22 years ago. Good Lord, he's been around for a while. Yeah, his next game will be his 900th game, and then I think he's 30-something away if you include international fixtures from playing 100 senior-level football matches, which is just absolutely insane. Shout out to James Milner. But keeping it going on Saturday, you got Chelsea versus Burnley. The game started out early. Chelsea got it to start out early. New sponsorship on their chest. Moise Caicedo played a wonderful ball forwards to Pedro Neto on the left wing. Neto sends it in quickly. First time, low cross. Joao Pedro, who had to extend to get to the ball, kind of made a weird situation of it. But hey, it was good. Gets the ball over the line. VAR had a little check. No worries. Chelsea, Burnley's not the greatest team. They're flowing. They're just wondering when are they going to get the second goal. And in the 72nd minute, it wasn't a second goal. It was a red card. Wesley Fofana just kind of made a rash challenge on James Ward-Prowse. I mean, I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was the worst thing I've ever seen, but ultimately it was a yellow card. It was the second yellow card. Chelsea will now be down a man defending their 1-0 lead. And 20 minutes later, that yellow card that turned into a red card bit them in the ass. Burnley win a corner. It's getting sent in by the same man who drew the red card, James Ward-Prowse. James Ward-Prowse, if you don't know, is one of the best kickers of the ball in the world. A free kick expert. He sends in a corner. Zian Fleming, who'd been giving trouble to the Chelsea backline all day, gets his head on it, and it ruins Chelsea's afternoon. At Stamford Bridge, game tied up, finished 1-1. And this is just another example of something that's been going on all year, even back to when Enzo Maresca was their head coach, is the amount of points Chelsea have dropped. Not because they've necessarily played poorly, but because their discipline got in the way. And that is ultimately what caused them to drop points. I mean, I can't imagine how many red cards they're at. Probably like 7 or 8 at this point in the season. I mean, I remember the Arsenal game earlier in the year where they were playing better soccer for all 90 minutes, but they couldn't win because they were down a man most of the game. This team feels like it's close. Like I look at Chelsea and I'm like, man, they've got some great players. You know, they're dynamic. They can counter quickly. But, you know, they're towards the top of the table. Should do decent in the Champions League in the next coming weeks. But it's that discipline. It's, I don't know, maybe, you know, Rosenier can figure it out and fix it, but these red cards and yellow cards and just making a mess of games where they should be putting it away is costing Chelsea. The next game was West Ham versus Bournemouth, and this game finished scoreless. It was a 0-0 draw, and I hate 0-0 draws, because what do you talk about in a 0-0 draw? I mean, I guess what you could talk about is the fact that West Ham were home. They were I don't want to say massively in control of the game, but they were pressuring Bournemouth. You know, they had more shots, more corners. They were definitely threatening. Again, they were at home, and the fact that they're in a relegation scrap. They're going to walk away from this weekend in 18th, the top of the relegation spots. So yeah, just ultimately another disappointing weekend for West Ham United as they remain 2 points from safety. Bournemouth, you know, they're kind of sitting on the fringes of a European spot, but I think they'll just take what they can get. Kind of an ugly afternoon, a boring afternoon, and it sets us up for one final game on Saturday. Manchester City at home against Newcastle. Manchester City have found themselves back in the title fight. With a win, they'd be able to put the pressure on Arsenal. They got that pressure started right away, 14th minute. They counter, another quick Manchester City counter. Omar Marmoush sends forward Nico O'Reilly, who's left-footed, finished by the left back, got into the left side of the goal, and there was nothing the Newcastle keeper Nick Pope could do about it. City get a 1-0 lead. 8 minutes later, though, Newcastle have a corner. It ends up with Lewis Hall, so it was like sent in, it was cleared. Lewis Hall's got it. He sends in a shot. It takes a wicked deflection, gets past Gianluigi Donnarumma, the Manchester City goalkeeper, ties the game at 1-1. And then, less than 4 minutes later, so this first part of the game for Manchester City and Newcastle is bang, 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 bang. Erling Haaland, the striker, was on the right side, and, you know, he's known for his goal scoring, but he was going to do a little bit of assisting here. Spoiler. Sends in a looping ball, and it was Nico O'Reilly who gets his double. His header finds the opposite corner. Again, nothing Nick Pope could do about it, and he regained the lead for City. It was a bit of a back-and-forth game from there on out. There were some questionable refereeing decisions. I know Bernardo Silva was on a yellow and sent in a rash foul, but it would finish 2-1 Manchester City. That brought them within 2 points of Arsenal before their game on Sunday, and they were just piling on the pressure. And as for Manchester City, they are playing good soccer. They have been getting results in the league. They beat Newcastle. They beat Fulham. Went to Liverpool. Got past Anfield. They did have, iffy draw against Tottenham, but before that, they beat Wolves. So, they've won 4 of their last 5. Is Arsenal kind of tripped over themselves in the games against United, Brentford, and Wolves. City keep applying the pressure. They're dynamic. They're fun. They're young. It should be Arsenal's year to pull away, but they haven't. And Pep Guardiola and Manchester City are going to make them pay for that. And I know going forward, City are going to have a lot of the Saturday games compared to Arsenal having the Sunday games. And if they can keep putting pressure on Arsenal, you wonder if they will crack eventually. So we're going to move on to Sunday in the Premier League. First game up on Sunday was Crystal Palace hosting Wolves. American Chris Richards starting in the back 3 for Palace. Definitely one of our American starting center backs in the World Cup in 2026. It was a sunny afternoon at Selhurst Park, and in the 61st minute, really wasn't too much going in this game. I think Palace were attacking. Wolves center back Ladislav Krejci earns a pretty dumb second yellow card. He earned one by just a collision earlier, maybe like 10 minutes before, and then referee calls a whistle for a foul, or blows his whistle for a foul, and Krejci just boots the ball away, which isn't called a lot, but it's something they're supposed to call, and it makes sense. It was stupid, and the referee was right, and he really just dooms his team being down a man, a team that's one of the worst in Premier League history. They're not going to do too well. They held the line for a long time, but at the 90th minute, they finally broke down. Palace were attacking. Tyreek Mitchell on the left wing. His low cross finds Evan Gessend, whose first time finish in the back of the net wins it for Palace. Oh, Wolves. I mean, what can you say about Wolves? It's like Sisyphus, the Greek guy, legend, who pushes the ball up the hill, and then every day the hill falls down. You have to imagine Sisyphus happy, and that's Wolves this season. I mean, they're 28 games into the season. They've 1 win, 7 draws, and 20 losses. They have a negative 33 goal differential. They're potentially, if they don't pick up a win or 3 draws before the end of the season, the worst team in Premier League history. And you just got to imagine just all the brutal ways they've lost, that ultimately they're just happy. I don't know. But yeah, wow, low scoring Premier League weekend. You know, I still have a couple games to talk about, and the last 2 on Sunday actually put some goals in. But I was looking down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I spent so much more time talking in the Champions League than I am the Premier League this week. But I don't know, the Premier League goals were just not flowing in, and if the games don't have goals, there's nothing to talk about. Which isn't necessarily true, because then we move into Forest Liverpool. That's the next game up. We're just going to jump straight into the goal. 97th minute in the depth. Forest, who are 17th, just itching for any point. They're defending against Liverpool. Dominic Szoboszlai, Liverpool's player of the season, sends in a ball deep. Van Dijk heads it down. He looks to be offsides. Turns out he wasn't. You got to wonder if Hugo Ekitike made a touch on the ball. He didn't. He was in an offsides position. And the first person to get to the ball after Van Dijk's header was Alexis McAllister, the World Cup winning midfielder. He puts it in the back of the net, wins the game for Liverpool. Liverpool kind of really need to pick up points whenever they can get it, because as of right now, they're sitting 6th in the league, and 6th won't be enough for a Champions League spot. Now, I think Liverpool are in serious contention to win the Champions League, but I think they would rather just secure it from a league position. It'll be much easier. And they're actually tied on points with Chelsea. They're 10 behind them. They're behind Manchester United, and they're 6 behind Aston Villa. And so, yeah, no, Liverpool are actually going to be playing desperately for any point they can get so far into the season. The third game on Sunday was Sunderland versus Fulham. And I just got to say, pretty awful jerseys by Fulham there. They're just like this highlighter greenish neon, and you know, when I've talked about green Adidas jerseys in this episode, the Newcastle in the Champions League was fantastic. It's a great shade of green. This one's awful, and Adidas are my favorite kit makers personally, and I feel like they've just kind of fumbled the bag with this kit. I mean, it's atrocious. It's awful. But let's talk the game now. There was nothing in the first half, and then the game really got exciting in the second half. I thought it was pretty 50-50 in the first half. And then the 54th minute, Alex Iwobi, the winger for Fulham, sends in a corner. The Mexican international Raul Jimenez heads it down to give Fulham a 1-0 lead. Less than 3 minutes later, Fulham win a free kick, another dangerous one. In the ensuing free kick, there's a penalty. Fulham players dragged down by his shirt. His pants fall down a little bit even. And it's Raul Jimenez who's expected to step up to this spot. He gets his run up for the penalty. He runs, he stops, he runs, he stops, he runs, he stops. But then he puts the ball in the back of the net, puts the penalty away. Fulham go up 2-0. And then a couple minutes later, 74th minute, Sunderland actually win a penalty of their own. The ball is like towards goal line, right outside the box. Big Dan Ballard, the strong center forward for Sunderland, wins it. Probably shouldn't have, but he did do well to win it. Got dragged down. Enzo Lefebvre, the impressive winger so far this season, steps up, hits a strong penalty, cuts Fulham's lead in half. Sunderland were pushing to get that tying goal, but it wasn't meant to be. While having a lot of guys forward, they send in a corner. Fulham countered. Harry Wilson carried the ball up a good length of the pitch, dumps it right off to Alex Iwobi, who finishes it behind the Sunderland keeper, and Fulham go impressively and win away at Sunderland. Sunderland, who started the season off incredibly strong, have kind of really fizzled out. I mean, they got 9 wins, 9 draws, and 9 losses, and even 9-9-9 to start the season. But, you know, I think they're pretty safe. I mean, they're 11 points ahead of relegation with 11 games to go. They should be doing all right. They're kind of in the thick of it in that middle part of mid-table, but with just how much promoted teams have struggled in years past, I think they're safe, and I think they can take the smart signings they've made this summer and just continue to compound that. But the final game on Sunday was the North London derby. Tottenham hosting Arsenal. Arsenal obviously coming off that just calamitous, awful, terrible draw against Wolves in the middle of the week, are really just the low point in their title charge. And then you've got Tottenham, who are in disarray. They've got 29 points from 26 games, and they're kind of, I mean, I can't believe it. I literally can't believe it, but Tottenham Hotspur are in a relegation scrap, and they cannot afford to drop any points, as well as, potentially to their nearest rivals. The game gets started out. Arsenal have most of the chances. And then the man who loves to score against Tottenham steps up and across in from Bukayo Saka, a touch and then a kick out of the middle of the air, kind of reminiscent of his goal against Crystal Palace. Eberechi Eze gets his fourth goal of the season against Tottenham for Arsenal, but Arsenal could not celebrate for too long. Declan Rice made a little bit of a mistake in the back, but Randall Kolo Muani pounced on it. Tottenham tied the game up less than 90 seconds later in the 34th minute. That was the score as it went into halftime, but right outside of halftime, Mikel Arteta must have said something that really got the Arsenal boys going, because Viktor Gyökeres hit a clean strike. I mean, it was something straight out of a training video when they get the touch right outside the box. They got like the dummies set up. The dummies in this situation would be the Tottenham defenders, and then just a strong finish into the bottom right corner. Arsenal, who had leads in recent Premier League games against United and Brentford and Wolves, choked away. That wouldn't be the case today. On a counter where Bukayo Saka actually probably should have done a little better to make a goal scoring opportunity count. Eze was right there to be in the right place, right time, make it 3-1. There was a little controversial moment at one point where, was it Kolo Muani or one of the Spurs players pushed into the back of Gabriel, and Gabriel kind of really sold it. But if you get two hands on the back of someone, I think most referees are going to call it. And since the referee called it on the field, they're not going to overturn it in VAR. And then in the dying breath of injury time, Martin Odegaard set up Viktor Gyökeres to get his double to make it 4-1 Arsenal over Tottenham. So if we get into this game, I'm not even going to pause myself here. I'm just going to keep it flowing. Oh man, I mean it's a tale of two worlds with these teams. I mean, the fact that Arsenal have now gone into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and picked up victory after victory after victory, 4 in a row away from home against Tottenham, is absolutely crazy. I mean, the fact that there is a 32-point gap between these two teams is also insane. By the next match day, it could be St. Totteringham's Day, the thing Arsenal fans have come up with to kind of mess with their North London rivals. But it's crazy to me, because it always felt like back in the day, even when Tottenham were the better of two teams, which was a real long stretch at the end of the 2010s, Arsenal would always step up and give the game to Tottenham. And in the last 2 to 3 years, it doesn't feel like Tottenham does that. I mean, it's a North London derby, for God's sakes. And besides capitalizing on one chance from Rice, I mean, it was a butt whooping. It was bad. It was belt to ass. I mean, this is now the second time this season that Arsenal have defeated Tottenham 4-1. I mean, yeah, it's one thing to happen at the Emirates, but to happen at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, your brand new stadium, with a new manager in his debut game, is bad. And Arsenal needed it. I mean, I think they definitely needed the confidence boost after that Wolves calamity. They have now a 5-point lead over City, though. City do have a game in hand, and they do play each other next month in the Premier League after they play each other in the Carabao Cup final, so that should be interesting. But yeah, no, this could be a huge confidence booster for Arsenal. It's just the result you need. I've seen people call it a statement win. I don't know about that. I mean, there's 10 games left for Arsenal. There's 11 left for Man City. There's still so much soccer left to be played. So I don't want to say anything was a season-defining win, but to say this team needed it is an understatement. I mean, this team needed this. And now they have a week off, and they got Chelsea, so it should be interesting. And yeah, that was it for the Premier League on Sunday. There was one game on Monday. It was the lone game, so I had a good opportunity to watch it. That was Everton hosting Manchester United. But actually, real quick, I'm going to talk about the other games from other leagues. Alaves drew Girona in Spain 2-2. Fiorentina, who had a horrific start to the Serie A season, who I think is slowly starting to right the ship, defeated Pisa 1-0, and then Bologna defeated Udinese 1-0 as well. But if we talk about this Everton-Manchester United game, we get into the first half. I thought the first half was pretty boring. I thought the game was even. I know there were some Manchester United Twitter accounts that I follow that were calling for Benjamin Sesko to come on around halftime. He came on. I think that added a level of dynamic threat to Manchester United's attack. Like, I didn't think Ahmad played poorly, but it just kind of, the countering threat once Šeško came on was so much better. And actually, before I give the praise to Šeško and a little bit of a spoiler, coming out of the second half, I thought Everton were the better team. The crowd just at the new stadium, the Hill Dickinson Stadium, they just seemed so into it, electric. It seemed loud. It was a roar, a kind of a roar that you only ever get, I feel like, maybe at Anfield or St. James's Park. And I thought for the longest stretch outside of the second half, it would be Everton who would get the goal, but that wasn't the case. They were pushing forward, and then a quick counter. Matheus Cunha sends a wonderful ball down the right side to Bryan Mbeumo, who 70 minutes into this game is still out sprinting his defender. I think it was James Tarkowski, and then trailing in the middle was Benjamin Sesko. Mbeumo lays it off perfectly for him. There's no world where Šeško isn't going to put that away. 71st minute, he does it. Actually, I think he had one or two opportunities to get another goal, but that was it. Manchester United win 1-0. It's bouncing. Is it a new manager bounce? I don't know. Like, I mean, I loved the signings that Manchester United brought in this summer. Cunha and Mbeumo. I mean, that's proven Premier League talent. And I think that's what, the great team, like Manchester City brings in proven Premier League talent. Arsenal bringing in Eze this year is proven Premier League talent. Manchester United were dominant in the 2000s. They would bring in proven Premier League talent. So Manchester United did good things in the transfer window. Šeško's a bit of a risk, but, there's a lot of potential there. They get a new keeper in Lamens, and things don't start out well with Amorim. And now, Michael Carrick, I think this is 5 wins from 6 games. I've seen some gnarly Manchester United new manager bounces. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had an insane new manager bounce. But these guys, they had the fight. They had the effort. They have, kind of like the intangible, like Tottenham, for example. Tottenham last year had, they came 17th, but they won the Europa League, and they had a fight and a bite to them that they would die for the badge under Ange Postecoglou. That's not this year with Thomas Frank, and it's not there now. With Manchester United, the way the intangibles that I saw from those guys today, you can't teach that. And I think Carrick's got these boys playing for the badge, believing in themselves. Obviously, momentum's on their side. It wasn't a game where they were creating incredible chances against Everton. It was a bit of a sloppy game. It felt more like a midweek game in the middle of the year, kind of maybe mid-January. I know it was only a month ago, but it's real cold. Nobody can get really anything going. The ball just gets sent long back and forth. And, United kind of weathered the storm when they had to, and when they got the one real good opportunity to counter, they took care of it. Now, actually, there was a good opportunity to counter right before, and Cunha just slipped. Like, he just fell over. Like, that was the first one. And, you very rarely get a second great opportunity, but they got it, and they made a chance of it, and, they're climbing up the table. They're 3 points behind Villa. They're 8 points behind City. And they're 13 points behind Arsenal with a game in hand. So if they won the game, they're kind of close. They're close. It almost makes you wonder, again, is this a new manager bounce? If they got rid of Amorim maybe 10 games earlier, where would they be now? Because there's going to be some over-optimistic Manchester United fans who are like, if Arsenal and City both just drop a crazy amount of points, we're right there. And, in theory, if Arsenal lose 2 games in a row, City maybe only get 3 points. Manchester United's within 2 games of the title fight. I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't. Predictions are like the worst thing anyone in a show like this could do, because they're just there to make you look stupid. But they're 3 points ahead of Chelsea and Liverpool, and they should just be pushing for Champions League next year. I think there's a good core to this team. They're obviously gonna have to replace Casemiro in the summer. I definitely think they could use a better center back. They've really struck out with the center back signings in years past. But if they can get top 4, keep Carrick. I don't know if they keep Carrick. I'm not an expert. I don't know if it's tactical genius or just good man management. But sometimes good man management's all you need. Life's good for Manchester United right now. They're on a high, and I think they should enjoy the high, because the last few years have been rather rough. Last year was rough, and the Amorim, I felt bad for the guy, but it was rough. And that is it. That's it. That's all I got for you. We're probably, I don't know. I mean, this is pre-editing, so maybe we're an hour 20, hour 30, hour 10 into this. I'm not sure. But if you made it this far into the first ever YouTube episode of Talk Soccer to Me, I greatly appreciate you. I'm going to shout out the social medias now again. TikTok, Instagram, Talk Soccer to Me. Hopefully we'll get some clips up from this episode as well. Easy to share, easy to watch, much shorter. And then obviously the YouTube account. If you like it, subscribe, comment, follow, do whatever you got to do. If I get the audio file figured out, which I should, it'll be, well, you could be hearing this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Podcasts. You can leave a review, 5 stars, like it, subscribe, comment, interact, tell your grandmother about it. And that's all. If you made it here and you're still listening, I love you. I'll see you next week.